Hafa Day and good morning. Thank you everyone for being here. The Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics Research and Planning will now convene this public hearing. Today is May 9, 2019, and it is currently 9:36 in the morning. For the record and in accordance with open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on May 2, 2019, and the second notice on May 6. Notice of today's public hearing was also available on the Guam legislators' website. With me today are Senators Kelly Marsh Taitano, thank you for being here. Senator Jim Moylan, thank you, Senator. Senator Tela Taidui, thank you for being present. Senator Will Castro, thank you for being here. On today's agenda, we have the appointment of Mr. John T. Birch to serve as a member of the Guam Education Board, the appointment of Ray P. Chargaloff Jr. as a member of the Guam Education Board, and the appointment of Rosie Tainatongo to serve as a member of the A.B. Wampat International Airport Authority Board of Directors. We will also be discussing Bill number 57-35, introduced by Senator James C. Moylan, which is an act to amend subsection 12-106 Gulf of Chapter 12, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the process of approving or denying charter schools petitions. Okay. I would like to call, we will begin with Mr. John T. Birch as a member of the Guam Education Board. And is there anyone that would like to give testimony on Mr. Birch's behalf? Please come forward to the table. Okay, we'll go with Mrs. Gutierrez first, and then Mr. Birch, you can submit your testimony. Mrs. Gutierrez, please state your name and your position.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maria Gutierrez. I am the acting chair of the Guam Education Board. With me this morning is my colleague, Mr. James Lujan. Madam Vice Speaker, we have a written testimony that both Mr. Birch and Mr. Chargaloff in it, but I'll go ahead and read it. But before I read my testimony, good morning, Senator Marsh Taitano, Vice Speaker, Senator Moylan, Senator Taidagay, and Senator Castro. When I heard about the appointment of Mr. Birch, I know Mr. Birch long time ago as a former educator, president of the GFT. For Mr. Chargaloff, I really don't know much about him, but when I was told that his mom is a teacher, his son is a teacher, his grandparents are both teachers, and his uncle, rest in peace, Chief John Martinez, is also a teacher, I feel very confident that, we have two good appointees to the Guam Education Board. Honorable Telena Nelson, dear Vice Speaker Nelson, thank you for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of the Guam Education Board to testify in support of Governor Lou Leon Guerrero's nominees for the Guam Education Board, Mr. John Birch and Mr. Ray Chargaloff Jr. As you know, the Guam Education Board is comprised of 9 voting members, 6 of whom are elected by the public and 3 are appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Guam legislature. At this point, there are only 4 elected members, including Chairman Mark Mendiola, myself, Ms. Lou Benavente, and Mr. James Lujan. This leaves 2 elected positions vacant, for which the governor may nominate members to fill these vacancies for the remainder of the term. Dr. Ron McInch is currently the only remaining appointee, serving as the business community representative. The governor may nominate individuals to fill the appointed position vacancies reserved for a parent and retired educator. We urge the Guam legislature to act quickly in considering and approving the nomination of Mr. Birch and Mr. Chargaloff to the Guam Education Board. With only 5 members on the board now, all 5 Guam Education Board members must be present at every official meeting in order to meet the minimum quorum requirement as well as the minimum number of votes needed to take action. Any absence, illness, or delay threatens our ability to conduct business, and this has been our challenge for over the past few months. Having 2 additional members on board as quickly as possible will help us. It's no easy task to be a member of the Guam Education Board. We may meet once a month for our official meetings, but we also hold numerous work sessions and community meetings as part of our effort to engage all of our stakeholders. The fact that Mr. Birch and Mr. Chargleff have agreed to be nominated already speaks volumes of their commitment to children and public education. We look forward to them joining us in the near future. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony this morning. Sidus Masim, buenos dias.
Sidus Masi, Mrs. Gutierrez. Mr. Birch?
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Senators. Good morning to all of you. Senator Marsh, Vice Speaker, Senator Moylan, Senator Taitigui, and Senator Castro. I'm very happy to be here before the Committee on Education and the 35th Legislature to be nominated for or appointed to the Board of Education. Let me read the letter that I wrote to you. My name is John Birch. I'm honored and humbled to have been nominated by the Governor of Guam to serve as a member of the Guam Education Board. Furthermore, I am pleased to appear before you, the 35th Guam Legislature, and the Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics, Research, and Planning for consideration of appointment to the Guam Education Board. I retired from the Governor of Guam with over 25 years of credited service. Over 14 of those years were devoted to our island's public education system. I also retired from the Guam Federation of Teachers with over 9 years of executive managerial service. I feel that this was a period remembered more for the cooperation between the GFT leadership and the public school system's management in successfully resolving issues concerning public education on Guam. I believe that my qualifications and experiences as an educator, a labor leader, a private business person, a government administrator, provide me with a unique understanding of the operations of our government and our public education system. I have no illusions of the challenges ahead. I know that it will require a lot of hard work, dedication, and creative innovation to resolve the many issues before us. The Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Public Education Act of 2005 stipulates that at a minimum, Guam Public Schools will provide certified teachers, librarians, counselors, and administrators, that the school and classroom environments are maintained to assure a healthful, safe, and sanitary learning environment, that schools should have required resources like textbooks for each child for the classes he or she is enrolled, and a library that has the right resources. This act recognizes that education in Guam is a civil right. If given the opportunity to serve as a member of the Guam Education Board, I will provide an uncompromised focus on standing up for our children to see that every child is provided an adequate public education. I see this not just as our legal responsibility, but also as our moral and ethical responsibility. Thank you for your consideration and the time you've taken to review my nomination to serve as a member of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. I'll now open up any
Yes.
questions that my colleagues may have for you. Senator Castro?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions for the appointee, but I do want to highlight a few things of Mr. Birch. His resume will reflect a highly educated individual. He's come through the ranks as a teacher 4 at DOE. He's a former associate professor. As he mentioned in his testimony, he was a labor leader. And so I think he's come full circle. What I also would like to mention for the public record, when considering this appointee, He's a responsible and contributing member of the beautiful village of Barragata. He raised wonderful children, all law-abiding, contributing members of this community. Mr. Birch is a responsible Harley rider. And I can tell you this, based on personal experience, personal and professional experience. By the way, for the record, I've known some of his children for 30 years. But I think the one quality, Mr. Birch, that I appreciate the most is the fact that you're not afraid to speak up. I've seen you in action as a labor leader. You spoke out for those who you felt were disenfranchised or being treated unjustly. And for what it's worth, Madam Vice Speaker, and I'm sure you could appreciate this as well, he's not a yes ma'am, yes sir kind of appointee. I think he's going to speak out. He's going to be a very divergent thinker. And if that can mix things up at the department to make us a better community, you have my unqualified support. Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Teitigui.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and he has a qualified support, definitely qualified for this. But oh my gosh, I don't know what else I can say other than what, Senator Castro mentioned. But I totally agree, you're well-rounded. What stands out to me, though, is your time at DYA.
Yes.
For children who are less fortunate and who run into issues and problems. And I'm so hoping that you bring that to the table of the board, to don't forget those children that need a little help, a little assistance. And sometimes it's at no fault of their own that they come into these problems, that you're there. I'm so glad you have that experience. And I'm not a Harley rider, but I'm a dirt bike rider. So I hope you don't hold that against me. But I really appreciate, most especially, for you coming up and stepping to the plate to do this, because it's not an easy job. I'm sure you've seen what's happened in the last, 8 years, what the board has gone through. And it's very important to not just get one opinion, but 2 opinions, and when you're moving forward with anything, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
But again, John, thank you so much for your commitment to this, because I know you're going to put your 100%, 120% into this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Suju's
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Teitigui. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Birch, thank you for coming out of retirement and coming back to serve the people of Guam.
Yes.
Obviously, your educational experience is exactly what we're looking for, and your experience in other fields as well is excellent. I think this is a great opportunity, if you have that excitement, to go forward and make some changes that, through your experience as a member of the board, that's a great opportunity for you. So I'm looking forward to seeing your name on the next session that we have to place our vote then. So congratulations, sir, for accepting the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Senator Kelly Marsh.
Hafadet and Menanasitu. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. We've got quite a full house. And thank you for the testimony that you have provided. So in going through it, as has been mentioned, your qualifications are very strong for this sort of position. I want to highlight some of them. One of them being that you went to high school in Hawaii. I don't know if you grew up there for most of your life, or you just were there for high school.
Just for a short time to finish high school.
I see. But I think educationally, in some ways, we've looked to Hawaii as an example for certain things. Language immersion, cultural immersion, and some of the approaches to the way that an indigenous community living within a larger, more diverse nation and how they approach things. So I think that experience probably serves as well, that you can bring some things from that experience of having had those years in Hawaii and probably staying attuned to some of what is going on there. So the fact that you went to UOG, you understand our systems, you've been an educator yourself, and through having worked at Guam Community College, the Labor Council of the Western Pacific, the Guam Federation of Teachers, the Department of Education. Again, those all speak very well of your being able to understand the breadth of what needs to be looked at and how to manage and navigate all of that. Another thing that I was very pleased to see is that you were a co-author for one of the Haleta series.
Yes.
The Haleta series, as a fellow social studies and history instructor and professor, the Haleta series, in my opinion, has been so incredibly important for our community at large. I've seen a real difference in the students that I teach after the Haleta series was written. It looked for ways to critically rethink of the ways that we were imparting information to our youth and the adults, because I've used it at the university level with adults there. And even just thinking about what and how they should be learning this information about themselves and about their island and how it all fits in together. The publication that you co-wrote, so I appreciate the whole series, but in particular, I do reference Ima Gobetna Guam. I use that one quite a bit, or I just admire the way that it rethought and reorganized the way that history is told and presented to our population. So I think that that does speak well of your ability to get in, to think out of the box, to have some of that critical examination, those efforts that you've been a part of to the board as well. And I think we need a lot of that. So I think those were the main points I wanted to highlight. I did want to ask you just a couple of questions.
Yes.
So with all of that background, is there something that you would point to as your strongest attribute that you'll be bringing to the board?
Well, I think it's my understanding of the education system as it is here on the island, having taught at various levels from middle school, high school, and at the college level. I understand the transition that students must go through as they progress through each grade level, and I understand, I do definitely understand the culture and the issues that many of our children are faced with today. And I've dealt with children. I mean, I've taught classes not just at the college level. I started out teaching as a special ed teacher, so I understand how children, how they react. Children that come from families who have disadvantages. So I have seen that, and because of my work at Department of Youth Affairs, I've seen children that have been locked up, not because they had caused troubles or the acts that they were accused of would have had them locked up with her as an adult. It's simply because they were children and they had no one to take care of them. So I see the disadvantages that families have had to go through. And that's why for the majority of my life, the jobs and the work that I've worked in have all been towards helping people out, whether it been at the Youth Affairs Office or as a teacher or as a labor leader. My whole life has been geared towards helping others. And even today, as a lecturer in our parish, I've been elected there now for over 32 years with my wife. It's all been geared towards others. And yes, I did take a break. I know Mary Gutierrez and I, we worked together. We sat on opposite ends of the table, arguing issues out back in the 90s and the early 2000s. But we've always been friends because we've always had the same goal in mind, to accomplish what we need to help the children that are attending the classes in our schools, and of course, to make sure that we have the proper teachers and administrators and others in place. We didn't always agree on the way to get there. We always agreed that we had to get there. And that's why we always walked away with an idea of what we wanted to do. And Rosie Tanatongo was here. She was a superintendent at the time. She and I got along very well, and we worked towards the same goals. And I think that's why I say that was a time where you saw a lot of cooperation between the labor union and the Department of Education at the time. And although we did have issues back then, and the same issues are still carried forward to today, there are ways that I believe that we can resolve these issues. It's just coming to an agreement on how to get there. And that's where all the disagreement has been on. Everybody wants to do the right thing. It's how do you get there? That's the biggest issue. That's where always the disagreement has always been. But yeah, understanding that and knowing how to work with it. Because not only have I worked inside of labor, I was also director of Department of Youth Affairs. So I've been on the side of executive management with the government. So I understand both sides. And I was trained to be a manager when I went to school, having my degrees in business management and public administration. And then I re-educated myself and decided that I wanted at one point in time to become an educator. I went back to school and got my education in that area. So I think that would be my strongest, is understanding what needs to be done and trying to convince others how to do it.
So just Masi for that answer. And it's incredibly important to me to hear about that experience and that range. And especially your heart and your consideration for those that are disadvantaged. One of the things for me, maybe it doesn't seem that way, but I had what I consider a pretty hard childhood in a lot of ways. And so for me, that's a lot of where my heart and consideration are as well. As they mentioned for our schools, we have a really high number of students that are coming from disadvantaged situations, families that are struggling to make ends meet, and so forth. And it's so good to hear that you have that real understanding. We don't know, as you mentioned, what they're dealing with at home. We don't know if they're going home to a type of a dwelling that doesn't even have electricity, and yet they're competing against other students that have computers and all sorts of other advantages. So I think understanding our community in that way is going to be really important to help us understand how to bridge all of that, how to come together and to meet their needs and lift them up so that they can be succeeding and they can dream for themselves, that they can come from a hard life, but they can do great things with that life. So I look forward to being able to bring those skills and those understandings along with you. Sujos Mati.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. Mr. Birch, I want to thank you for accepting this appointment and giving of yourself. And I appreciate the fact that you are a teacher and that you have, especially your integration with special education, so you understand really the hardships of even the littlest ones. I do have several questions for you. What is your vision for Guam Department of Education?
Well, it has been for a long time to see that the students in the classrooms are given the highest of all priorities. In the past, I know that the current superintendent has made a lot of improvements, and I congratulate him for that. He's pulled the department way ahead from what it was before I retired. But many issues are still the same. We still need to bring in and make sure that we have a teacher in every classroom. We have textbooks, or because we're becoming modernized, tablets, where they can download electronic textbooks for every child to make sure that they have that, because currently that's not the case. And when I was in the system itself, that definitely was not the case. Many times teachers, and even to this day, still produce their own materials because they simply don't have enough. And to make sure that the assessments of our students as they go through school are good enough so that they can get, and if they want to, advance even into higher education in some colleges or universities or trade schools, to make sure that they have the basic skills that we need today. And that includes skills in areas of technology, not just academics. So it's making sure that children have the right and the correct resources available to them, and that the teachers have access to these materials. And of course, that we have qualified administrators in there that recognize this. And I understand that the great majority of administrators in the Department of Education come from the teaching ranks. So they're very much aware of what it takes to be a teacher in the front lines, because that's where everything takes place, is when you are in the classroom. You meet with the children, you meet with your students, and then you make contact with the parents. That's where the learning actually occurs. But teachers can't do it alone. You need the support. You just can't walk in a classroom and turn on the lights unless there's maintenance people to make sure that occurs. But you need to have people that are well versed in maintaining the rooms. You need to have administrators that make sure that you get your resources in. And then of course there are children that do have many issues where you need counselors, whether it be health counselors or guidance counselors, because they do have all kinds of problems. And it's not unique to each child. Each one is different. They're all different. And I've been faced with that, where you deal with children that you have in your classroom, especially today, where the issue now is one of the big issues to mainstream old children, even those with disabilities, into regular classrooms. How do you rate these or assess these students when they're in classrooms of other children that are operating at a higher level? So this makes it difficult on the individual teacher. But if we make sure they have the correct resources available to them, we can make it easier for them. And coming from the classroom, I'm very much aware of how that occurs. I mean, I've dealt in a regular classroom with having children in there who have autism, and trying to deal with an autistic child in a regular class setting is difficult, but there's ways to do it. It's just that not everyone has the training for it, and we can't expect, or we probably don't have the finances to go out and pay for training for every single teacher to be trained in every single area. But we can probably get some people that are experts to come out and assist in that. So hopefully we can do that, and it can expand and make the concentration on the classroom. I mean, I was a classroom teacher. I still feel the same way. And although I've been in management in many situations, I still refer back to my experiences on the front lines in the classroom itself. That's where the experiences are occurred.
Thank you. In the most recent years, the Guam Department of Education opened the Success Academy, and they did away with alternative school. Maybe perhaps in your time it was known as PACE.
Yes.
And during some of my visits to the schools, especially at the middle school level, some of the teachers have been asking to return alternative school. What is your perspective on that matter?
I agree with the teachers. When PACE was active, I was a teacher at Ocean View Middle School, so we were neighbors with PACE. I know the teachers that dealt with PACE. And these were for students that were extremely disruptive in the classroom. I mean, extremely. They're not the regular student that you would deal with on a day-to-day basis. And what they did is they removed them from the regular classroom environment and placed them in a controlled environment. Because all it takes to disrupt your class, so you have a class of 30 students, is one child, and the whole hour of education is gone. Because you're dealing with the issues of one child, and all of a sudden, you're trying to take care of that child, and because of necessity, because of the safety of the classroom, because of the outbursts and the violence that does occur with these children, you're concerned about the safety of the other children, and you simply stop teaching, and you go into a safety mode. And I've done that while I was at JFK. I was a teacher at JFK when I was teaching special education there. And when I walked in one of my classrooms, one of my students walked up to me and said, "Mr. Birch, be careful." I said, "Why?" He says, "There's a student with a knife who's going to stab another student in the classroom." So, of course, I watch out for that child. When he came in, I grabbed him from the back, took the knife away from him. We had one to monitor, so I pressed those buttons on the wall and called the office. They sent somebody over and took him in. That same day, another child had bullets in a brown bag with a list of names, including one of the assistant principals that they were going to shoot on the same day. That's what PACE was for, to remove these violent students and remove them from the classroom. So I was really disheartened when I heard that PACE was dismantled or stopped, but I'm glad that they have this other program coming in. But I still see a need, especially now that the required age to attend school is up to the age of 18. So many of these students at that level will be bringing this into the classrooms. And how many teachers do we have that are capable of disarming a student with a knife or a gun? There are not that many out there. And so much violence has been happening in our schools in the States, and we don't ever want to see any of that happen here on island. But we can't train everyone to disarm somebody. And when you walk in a classroom as a teacher, I hear from many teachers, starting from the middle school, they say, well, you watch out for students who wear a necklace around their neck, because on the end of that, that's not a medallion, that's a knife or something with a point that they're using as a weapon. So little things like that. They carry socks. What do they put in socks? They put padlocks in it. So you hit somebody in the head, it knocks them out pretty hard. So yeah, I've seen that. And PACE was made for that, for those kind of disruptive students. So when they took PACE away, it took that avenue away that teachers had, where you could kind of remove a student from the regular environment with other students, place them in a controlled environment while they're in school. And if you met any of those PACE teachers back then, they were tough people. They were tough people. When I met them, I was thinking, I'm glad I'm not where you're at. But we did need them, and I think we probably still need them. And now that we have older students who are not just older, they're bigger, they're stronger. And not all teachers are 6 foot tall. I mean, we have teachers that are 5 foot, 4'11", and you have students that play basketball and football that are giants out there. So if you have one of them turn violent, how do you take care of it? Do you just put him in a room on campus and say, well, you're going to be in that room for 1 month until you settle down? PACE was something totally different. And it set up a learning environment. Maybe there could have been improvements made to it. I'm not aware of why they discontinued it, but I do remember the need, and I do remember referring a few students, and some of that have been placed into that program.
Thank you. And just one last question. Are you looking to introduce any board policies, or is there something that you'd like to introduce, and perhaps and why? I mean, you can introduce the board policy to bring PACE back. I'm sure the middle school teachers
Well,
will be
it's a
appreciative.
topic that I am very much concerned about, that PACE is something, and I did read in the paper how they've created something not like PACE, but similar to it. It doesn't necessarily remove students from the classroom environment, but it is definitely something that I will bring up before the board, because yes, it's one of those programs I thought that was really good, that helped the classroom teacher out, and many of us have heard about the violence that have been occurring in some of our classrooms, and how some teachers and administrators have been able to handle it. But I think one of the safest ways is to isolate the violence and remove that student if necessary. And there was a process for it back then. I'm not sure how that's going to work today, but yes, hopefully we can do something about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Birch, and thank you for taking the time out to come here today and provide testimony for your appointment. And thank you for agreeing to serve. It's not a glorious board to be on. There's a lot of scrutiny on it. But I hope that in the future, if and when you are confirmed, that you will advocate strongly for the students, for the teachers. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we will call on Mr. Ray Charkiloff Jr., who is also appointed to serve as a member of the Guam Education Board. And anyone else that would like to give testimony on Mr. Charkiloff's behalf? Go ahead and go first. Please state your name and your position. Thank you.
Hafaday, Honorable Vice Speaker Telena Cruz Nelson, Honorable Senator March Taitano, Honorable Senator James Moylan, and Honorable Senator Telo Taitagui. Thank you for being present here this morning. Thank you for everybody that's here today on behalf of the appointees. It is my privilege to speak on behalf of my husband, Ray Charkiloff Jr. I am also his business partner in many things, his confidant and his counselor. So I think I can speak on his qualities and skills in a light that maybe nobody else knows. I could tell you Ray's upbringing, his background, his educational achievements, community merits, accolades, and more that can stand alone in demonstrating his work ethic. But I'd rather tell you the qualities and skills he possesses that enables his success and how you may find it to be beneficial as an appointed member of the Guam Education Board. I remember a quote by Woody Allen, 80% of success is showing up. And funny enough, on our way over here, I asked him, are you ready? Are you ready for your public hearing? And he said, all I know is the governor asked me to show up, and I'm showing up. And he had no idea I was going to speak today on his behalf. And I can't help but relate this to my husband. If there is one thing I've seen by his side, is his commitment to showing up and putting in the work that needs to be done. I've seen him show up for one person and give just as much attention as he does when he shows up for a crowd. He's a creative thinker, always critical in the next step of his goals, and always willing to make difficult changes. Ray sees a new way in doing everything, and what may seem obvious to us, Ray has the ability to see the obscure. He envisions the road not traveled and possesses the courage to set a direction to achieve any mission. He has solid judgment and wisdom that has been tested time and again in his multiple business ventures. He has extensive experience in tough situations, has accepted failure, been turned down over and over again, and he is here before you today selected by the governor of Guam because he's intelligent enough to know that only through experience, dedication, and showing up do we succeed in the long run. Ray believes in what is right, not what is the norm. He is not easily influenced. He expresses himself with candor and practices impartiality in decision-making. His ability to connect with people and at any level or in any setting is a quality I most value in him. One I believe opens the most unlikely opportunities and is without a doubt his most endearing quality. Lastly, Ray has a desire for learning, constantly in search for personal and professional growth. His achievements include merits in higher education, but believes learning happens as much outside the classroom as it does within. My husband carries a genuine desire to give back to the island of Guam, and the people of Guam deserve devoted and accountable board members. I am confident Ray will bring value to the Guam Education Board in more ways than one, and I hope you confirm his appointment today. CG Uzmaasi.
Thank you. Mrs. Gutierrez, do you have testimony?
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. The written testimony that I handed earlier is the same with Mr. Birch, but like I say, I was telling Mr. Chargala, first time I met him is this morning, that we are very excited and happy for him to join us, and he will be the baby of the board. The young ones, you know, we're all manamko there, but I know he's gonna bring in a lot of good things. We heard a lot about him from outside. That when we mentioned the name, he said he is just the right person to be on the board, and that's what we need. So we welcome him, and I again urge you and humbly request you to please expedite their confirmation hearing. We really need them on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gutierrez. Mr. Chargala?
Good morning, everybody, and the Vice Speaker and all the senators, members of the media, and the public that are here to attend. You know, I want to state the obvious. I'm a fresh face everywhere I go. I just met a lot of people for the first time this morning, and the first thing I ever get is, you know, I know your parents, I know your relatives, and I'll be the first to say that I'm here to create my own legacy. You know, I'm here to stand on my own to provide the best service that I can, especially for this board. And it's an honor and a privilege for me to be here, to be nominated, to be appointed. And what I want to do is I want to explain a little bit about myself and give you guys my background as far as why I'm here today, and obviously what I want to do if accepted to this position. So I actually moved back on island with my wife and my family back in 2016, and like many people that leave the island, they go to pursue whether it be education or opportunities. And I always knew in the back of my mind that my passion and my goal in life was to give back to Guam. And the reason why I decided to come back is because I felt that I have the tools, I have the experience, I have the confidence to bring back all the experience and knowledge to bring back to the community. So when I first landed in 2016, I decided to get a typical job, and within 3 months, I knew that job was limiting my capabilities and my skill sets. So I decided to create my own business. I always tell people, if there's no opportunity, then create it. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to lead by example. I opened up my first business here in Guam in 2016, and like my wife said, whether one person showed up to the service or 100 people, I'm going to give them the same benefit of the doubt. Within that first 2 months, I had 3 people show up, and it turned into 300. Before you knew it, it was enough for me to expand my business and create another business. So my first 3 years here on island, I've created 2 businesses and offered at least 40 to 50 people job opportunities here, in addition to serving the community members, many of which I've seen just within my interactions here in the Congress building, which is my first time here. I saw so many different faces that I've interacted with on a daily basis with, and that's what I'm about. I'm about bringing the energy that I have and my experience to the community of Guam, and I've done it through business. Now I know that I can bring that same work ethic, that same passion, that same energy into this position. I know many people probably question, what's my experience here? And most of the people that I know that are on the board, they're either previous educators or they've had some type of administrative role within the Department of Education. And I'm not ashamed to say I'm a student still, which means I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to dedicate myself to any new challenges. I know that, when somebody first approached me about this position and they asked me about it, I told myself, I was like, I know there's a lot of difficult challenges ahead of me, because if I look at how many students, how many parents, how many administrators there are in this island, and there's only 5 people that's going to be representing that's a tall task to order for anybody. So for someone to ask me, let alone the governor, the lieutenant governor, to ask me to be part of this position, I told them I'll give them everything I got. Everything I've ever done, I've succeeded in, and I don't look at this any different. I also want to say, as far as being appointed to this position, is I look at this position as all I look at is I'm the voice for the students, I'm the voice for the parents, I'm the voice for the administrators and the teachers. In order for me to understand the problems, identify the problems, and eventually get solutions out of that, is I have to go do all the groundwork and figure out what are the issues, what are the standards that we should be setting for Department of Education, and then my job is how do we exceed those standards and expectations. If we're looking at the U.S., or I know you mentioned Hawaii, if we're looking at it as the standard for what Guam should be based on, then we need to see, are we there yet? And if not, how do we get there? If we are there, how do we continue to keep progressing in the right direction? That's what I want to bring to the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chargaloff. I'll now open up the questions from my colleagues. Senator Tadigui.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ray, you've spoken like a true, strong, dedicated Southern boy, or should I say man, Southern man. And, I'm a little biased because I'm from the South as well. And again, I know your parents and their family. So I want to thank you for stepping up to the plate on this, and listening to what you had to say was a really good thing. But what impressed me the most was when you said something, when you said you create it. You know, I have a saying, and I'm trying to change people's way of saying, you know, have a nice day. So my comment is create a great day, because you decide on how you want to make that day begin or that day work for you. So create a great day. So I hope everybody says that from now on, okay? I got Andrea Pellicani saying it, so it's a good thing. Hopefully she'll spread it. But saying that is stepping up to the plate, is being proactive, you know, by creating it. And it's so important to hear you say that. And the other thing that I like John, he has some great attributes to him. You bring to the table not only a fresh mind, like you said, which is true to form, but your physical fitness, your ability to work on individuals, on getting them healthy. Because I truly believe a healthy body is a healthy mind. And you're going to bring that to the table on this board. You're going to make sure that sports are included to our students, that this area is not forgotten, you know, that they work toward that. It really does make a difference to have something for children, to have an outlet, you know, in that direction. So I really appreciate you coming to, and I appreciate your wife for allowing you to do this.
It was a tall order.
So I appreciate that too as well. And you're going to make a great asset to this board. Good luck to you, and you have my full support. Thank you
very much.
Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chargloff, thanks for taking time out of your schedule with your entrepreneurship and your two companies there you're working at, doing well at. I really like the name Fat Boy Slim.
Yeah.
I feel there's a chance for me now. So, but I'm happy that you accepted the nomination. I'm looking forward to you bringing some ideas, great ideas as an entrepreneur in health and fitness. And I'm sure the board is excited of having a new face and energy. So I'm looking forward to seeing your name on the next session floor and placing my vote. So congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Marsh.
Hafide. So again, it's good to see everybody here. We still have a very full house, which is very good. And Siju's Maasi to those who were testifying. I know that it takes time and effort to prepare, so thank you for that. It is very good to hear about your successes, and part of what I think is really important is it's been successes in a variety of areas, and that shows your range of what you've tackled, what you can tackle, and the experience that you bring from those. So I think that's a very good attribute. And as was mentioned, I think for our educational system and for our island youth, exercise is so important. Actually, it was all through high school and even through parts of college, I thought I was going to end up being a physical education instructor. Didn't quite happen, but I saw the value in that. And what we're seeing today is we're having our youth at younger and younger ages. They're spending more time indoors. They're spending less time being physically active. At younger ages, they are contracting, if that's the proper term, diabetes. So we can see that it's really affecting our community, and we need advocates in there that know how to support the importance of that, but how to develop programs that can maybe reach out and serve them well. And I'm thinking that perhaps your connection to having set up a business around a food truck, that maybe there are some nutritional aspects. I'm not as familiar with your food truck, but I'm definitely ready to try it. I've always had really great experiences. The food trucks, I think a lot of times they are very innovative and kind of on the cutting edge of fusion foods and other things. So I will definitely be looking forward to that. But perhaps that's also another quality that you are bringing, is understanding some of that. We have had issues across the nation with how to best service and provide nutritional food in a quality way for our youth. And the United States, as compared to many other countries, the United Kingdom, Italy, to name just a couple, we're really far behind, and we don't do a good service to our youth. In Italy, they make pasta from scratch every morning. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to do that, but I think that we have definitely room for improvement and ways to ensure that our students are getting that nutrition. They need it to be staying awake and alert and performing well in their classes. So perhaps that will be some of what you bring. And in looking at your experience growing up, in your educational experience, so I think you, as perhaps all of us here, you've come through the ranks of our educational system on Guam, and so you understand it from that perspective. It wasn't all that long ago that you were going to Guam High. And perhaps you also, as you mentioned, having experience being away in Las Vegas, you may be, there's a very large Guam population and Chamorro population that's in Las Vegas. And so maybe some of that diasporic, that experience of being away from home is going to be really helpful in many ways. So many people speak about learning to appreciate certain things at home that they hadn't realized until they were away. And maybe you can help us all remember those things or learn those lessons while we're here. So those are perhaps things that you can be bringing as well. And it was very important to hear overcoming challenges. We want what's best for our students, and yet in so many ways we have challenges. And so your commitment to those, your perseverance in those, through successes and failures, but you still come in at the end of the day and keep trying, I think those are really strong qualities. And having what I imagine is a bit of a can-do attitude that you bring. Having been an instructor and things like that here on Guam, I know a lot of times it's looking those challenges in the face and doing it anyways, figuring out a way, like coming up with creative solutions and other ways to deal with making sure it still happens. So I think that's really important. So I guess my question would be perhaps on the things that I've touched, or perhaps in another way, if you have some visions as to what you might be able to prioritize or strength in our curriculum that you're hoping to champion, if you could explain perhaps what some of your vision is in that way.
Yeah, sure. So, first things first, I want to make sure that I have, before I give a response to what my vision is, I have to know, what are the challenges and some of the obstacles that people go through here at the board, and issues that keep, that are brought up in a consistent manner. So, as far as I know, that I've heard through a lot of people that are in the Department of Education, I know that there's a lot of issues concerning whether it be dropout rates, whether it be suicides I hear a lot of with many of the people that I communicate with on a daily basis. And I want to explore what are some of those major issues that are consistently reoccurring, and how do we minimize those type of concerns. And the only way we're going to get those type of answers is if we actually do the legwork, and that's talking with the parents, talking with the students, talking with the people that are every day dealing with these type of conditions and concerns at the school. So, I'm willing to hit the ground running and going towards a lot of the schools, talking with a lot of the parents, talking with a lot of the students, and asking them what are some of the issues that are consistently amongst all the high school, elementary, and middle school. And once those concerns, I've gathered all that data, it's a lot easier for me to say, here's the game plan that I want to approach in terms of how to minimize some of those issues. It could be things where students are not being picked up at a certain bus routes. These are certain things that I've identified. Why what are some other opportunities that are going to be able to prepare students after high school. Those are challenges that I've experienced where maybe it's not just the military, maybe it's not college, maybe it's more going through trade school or having trades programs inside school so that they have a better direction as far as what students want to do outside or after school. And sometimes when you have a vision or you have direction, then it gives students a little bit more guidance and hope, because sometimes you don't have those resources available at home because you only have a single parent home, or maybe both parents are working, or there's all kinds of conditions that may come up. And once that data is gathered, it'll be a lot easier for me to come up with a solution as far as what those problems are as I identify them. So.
Suzuis Masi, for your answer. Yeah. And I find it very thoughtful, which I think is very important. Learning the landscape, learning what the issues are, and then approaching it in a methodical way. So I think even that, just hearing that, is important to hear and to understand how you operate. And I think you hit a nail on the head, myself included, even though I talked about wanting to be a physical education instructor. Really, that gap between high school and college, I felt directionless in certain ways, and I felt like I floated about. And so I think finding ways to provide that direction to our students is going to be really key, to connect them to trade school, to connect them to college, to connect them to a career, but connecting them to something where they can envision something that fits for them. That's really important. I think that'll be really key.
Yeah, maybe something that I wanted to add on is I want to provide resources, meaning I see a lot of people thinking, a lot of students thinking that they have to go off island to get the type of education, to get the type of opportunities that I feel Guam already has. And if they have the confidence, they have something tangible that they can attend, they can see, those are the resources that I feel would be valuable for especially someone in high school. For the elementary and the middle school, I feel that if they have the proper resources, whether it be textbooks, whether it be, I know that, my mom being a teacher, she always mentions that sometimes the teacher to student ratio is not suited best for the students, because the teachers cannot handle 50 students in one classroom and have the same type of information disseminated to having a classroom with only 10 students. So some of those challenges I know that exist out there, I'm excited to tackle them head on. I'm not afraid to get dirty and find out what are some of the issues, and I know that those are to provide those type of resources available at each level that's going to be my priority.
Again, it's very good to hear that answer, and hearing that your mother is an educator, it also gives me a little bit of extra insight. I'm also the child of educators, but I know you grew up in an atmosphere then hearing about these sort of issues, and so that gives you a little more depth because you grew up in that experience, and then you have that connection to those family members now. So Suzuis Masi, for your answers, and I look forward to having your energy on the board.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chargala, for accepting this appointment. I appreciate your drive and your passion, and the tenacity to get things done. And I definitely look forward to the work that you can produce within the board, and the fire that you can ignite to really assist the teachers and students better. And when you do get a chance, if you haven't already, go ahead and look up 17 GCA Chapter 3 and look up what you can do as a board member, some of the things that you are allowed to do within the limits of the law. Our staff is currently reviewing these areas and trying to see if we can make some policy changes to give the board a little bit more authority and more meat in the direction that we are heading. So I want to thank you again. I know it's almost like you're coming into something unknown, but perhaps sometimes it's a good thing, right? So you're not biased and so forth. So I welcome the fresh perspective. right, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to your wife for supporting you. Otherwise, you couldn't have done this without her support. So thank you, Mrs. Chargaloff. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
Thank you. Okay, we will now hear testimony on Mrs. Rosie R. Tainatongo as a member of the AB Wanpat International Airport Authority Board of Directors. Mrs. Tainatongo, if you may, and if there's anyone that would like to give testimony on her behalf, please move forward. Good morning, Mrs. Tainatongo. I believe you have some friends here that would like to give testimony. So,
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Perhaps we'll start with Ms. Olivares. Please state your name and your position.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator. Let me just prepare. Good morning, Vice Chair Telena and Chairwoman of the Committee on Education, Air Transportation, Statistics Research and Planning. Good morning also Senator Kelly Marsh, Senator Tyler Taitagui, everybody on the 35th Guam legislature here and not here. But good morning. My name is introduced to everybody. I'm here. My name is Faye Valencia Ovales, currently the chairwoman for the Guam Academy Charter School, testifying in behalf of Ms. Rosie Tainatongo, our fellow trustees. Ms. Tainatongo joined us in February 6th of 2018. In the year that she had joined us, she had demonstrated her commitment, her dedication to the Guam Academy Charter School kids and children rather, and all the stakeholders of our charter school. I don't remember a time where she had missed any board meeting, which is so much needed now on the makeup of our board of trustees or commissions. And something I feel I could guarantee, even if she has all the way to come in from the south. She had always been there and had made time for any meetings that we have for the Guam Academy Charter School. I'm quite sure you have her resume and all the background and all the different positions that she had held in the community. And all of those speaks well of what she had done as an educator and what she had done as part of a southern community that is all knowing each other, family and everybody in that community. I know she's also very active in her parish. And this is just the quality of a person that in such a short time I have known and loved so well. Because she is not only, she's God-centered and family-centered, that I think all her life and all her thoughtful decisions are guided by all of that. I am confident, and I'm really very confident, that the same dedication and commitment will be given by Ms. Rosie Tainatongo in keeping up with the vision and with the vision of the Guam International Airport
Okay, we are back online. Thank you. We are back online. We had a short power outage, so the generator's up and running. So we'll start again, Ms. Olivares. Thank you.
Good morning again, Senators. Senator James Moylan, buenas, half a day. I will continue. I would like to reiterate the fact that I'm fully confident that Ms. Rosie Tainatongo will do the same dedication, will give the Guam International Airport Authority the same dedication and passion as she is with the other board that she had sat in the past, including the Guam Academy Charter School. She will be a total asset and will be truly complementing the leadership of the airport manager, current airport manager right now, former Senator Tom Ada. Ms. Tainatongo will also be able to do through her thoughtful decision all the proper appropriation and allocation of the resources to achieve the goals and mission of the Guam International Airport Authority. Thank you so much for giving me this time to testify on behalf of Ms. Tainatongo.
Thank you, Ms. Olivares. Dr. Juan Pat?
Buenas and half a day. Madam Vice Speaker and Chair of the committee, Senator Marsh, Senator Moylan, and Senator Taitagui. I'm Dr. Judith Wanpat, Chief Academic Officer for Guam Academy Charter School. I'm an educator by profession with the Department of Education and now with the Charter School, and I've served in this august body for about 8 terms as a senator and speaker. It is my honor and pleasure to speak on behalf of Rosie Tainatongo to serve on the Antonio B. Wanpat Guam International Airport Authority. I have known Ms. Tainatongo for over 30 years, and I've watched her work her way up the ranks of the Department of Education as a business administrator, employee management officer, EMRO, equal employment opportunity officer, EO, administrator for the Department of Defense Funds, associate superintendent for business and finance, and finally reaching the top position as the first superintendent of education. She is a dedicated public servant that after her retirement from government service, she continued to serve her community as a board chair of the Guam Memorial Hospital Board, vice chair of the Guam Education Board, and currently is the vice chair of the Guam Academy Charter School Board of Trustees. She is no stranger to serving on boards. She has continued this momentum of giving back to the community who has helped her climb the ranks in an institution. She brings a wealth of information and will be an asset to the board, bringing her finance and employee management experiences. I believe Ms. Tainatongo has demonstrated her values, her commitment, and vision of promoting an institution to achieve its mission. I ask this committee to seriously support her confirmation to serve on the Antonio B. Wanpat Guam International Airport Authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Juan Pat. Sir?
Good morning, Senator Marsh, Senator Moylan, and Senator Taitagui, and Madam Vice Speaker, Telena Nelson. My name is Mark Tainatongo. I am the son of Rosie Tainatongo. I've been I taught for DOE for 21 years, 1 year up at Simon Sanchez, and 20 years at Augusta Johnston. And I've had the privilege of actually working with Ms. Nelson, who is an excellent educator as well. So just for the record, sometimes you need to get that credit, Senator, for doing an outstanding job, not just as senator, but as an educator. I had the privilege of working beside you and knowing just the qualities that you possess as an educator.
Thank you.
I'm here today because, most people can say, well, of course you're going to talk good about your mother, but, my mom does have a mean streak, and and I guess it's, for bringing up your child when you want your child to be, grow up to be the best person that they can be. one of the greatest things I just want to point out, besides her faith that actually stands out the most, is her always telling me to go to Mass, make sure that I'm good with God. So I guess those are very good values that she'll bring also to the board, is that she'll always have that sense of honesty that will always be in her, because that's just part of her ethics. And speaking of ethics, I guess I'll make that my main point of that is when I was at Agada, she implemented the 24-hour notice. And I actually got paid up. And I was really actually confused, so I went inside and I was kind of upset at that particular payday. And I went and talked to the principal at the time, who was Mr. Chris Anderson. And I asked Mr. Anderson, I said, what was the problem? And he said, oh, you got paid up. I said, well, what was the problem? He said, you didn't give your 24-hour notice. Now, I never liked to bother my mother when she was at the position of her being superintendent at the time, because I don't think it's right to utilize any kind of leverage if you have family inside the system. Well, that's what I was taught from my parents. So I went ahead and I did call my mom and I said, did you know I got paid up? She said, son, everything has to pass through my desk. I'm the one that paid up to you. I was so mad. I went outside and I discussed with my coworkers and they said, if any one of you ever cheat on your pay period, I will tell on you. And they said, what happened to Mark? They said, well, apparently his mother paid up him for not following the rules. So she set the bar that if she can do that to her son, then apparently she can do that to anybody else. So she doesn't hold no favoritism. It's not based on nepotism. It's actually based on who you are as a person, what kind of job ethics do you bring to the table, and what kind of worker are you. So she did not do that to me as her son, but she did that to me as an employee of the Department of Education. So she held me to the same standards as she would have to anybody else. So I was thinking that would be, that's a great thing that she has. And if she, all those qualities that she does has, besides everything else that she'll be able to share with you today, she'll make a really great candidate for being part of the board up at the Guam International Airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarnatongo. Mrs. Rosie Tarnatongo.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Nelson, Senator Kelly Mars, Senator James Moylan, and Senator Tela Taitagui, I'm sorry. I've worked with her for a while. Good morning and half a day. I'm supposed to say my name first, sorry. I am Rosie Tainatongo, and I'm here to testify on my behalf as an appointee to the board at the airport. Good morning and half a day, Madam Chairwoman and members of this esteemed committee. I, Rosie R. Tainatongo, am honored and privileged to be before you today for my confirmation hearing. I desire to continue my public service to our government and our island community, and I accept the nomination to be a member of the Board of Directors for the Antonio B. Wampat International Airport Authority, Guam. I would like to first thank our Lord for the continued blessing of grace in my life. I also want to convey at this confirmation hearing my sincerest appreciation to the Honorable Governor Lou Leon Guerrero for having the trust and confidence to appoint me as a member to the GIAA Board. My journey in public service, Madam Chair and Senators, is 40 years of experience in the education industry. As illustrated in the resume provided by your committee, my leadership has been a part of overseeing a critical government agency, managing and supervising approximately 4,000 employees at the Department of Education and approximately 33,000 students deriving from a diverse background. 38 schools and several major divisions. The department during my tenure operated with over $130 million in local appropriation and approximately $22 million in federal funds. I manage and administered over $100 million of the Department of Defense funds with the government of Guam as a special assistant to the governor between 1997 and 1999. I also bring to this board a wide range of other experience that has been developed over the many years, such as being in the board of the Guam Memorial Hospital, the Government of Guam Credit Union, Board of Education, Senior Citizen Council, and currently serving on the board of the trustee for the Guam Academy Charter School, to name a few. In addition, I am also the CCD coordinator for the San Dimas Catholic Church. As our airport continues to evolve and modernize in every aspect, we would like to uphold the airport's vision, which states, "Our vision is to set the standard in excellence as a world-class airport and premier aviation hub of the Western Pacific region." I will work collaboratively with the members of the board in an effort to forge ahead to provide outstanding service to the traveling public. I will bring to the board a wealth of knowledge in the policy-making decision and contribute to the creation of policies that will continue to propel the airport authority forward to overcome the myriad challenges that are part of the dynamic world of aviation and airport business, and sustain the policies and programs that help it to be a major gateway to our tourist industry. I am honored to be a part of a board who have worked diligently to ensure the safety and security of all who visit Guam or call Guam home. My ultimate goal remains to do good for the people of Guam and all travelers alike. With this appointment, I will concentrate on how we can serve our island residents and visitors with this service at the airport. In addition, I offer a sense of compassion, generosity, and patience. I am a good listener, willing to work hard to provide the best service for our island. I will be remiss if I do not thank my husband, Ignacio Tainatongo, who have been married for 56 years, and my children for all these years of support during my public service endeavors, and for allowing me to continue to serve our government and our island community. Your acceptance of my testimony will be greatly appreciated. I ask for your confidence and support by allowing me this opportunity to engage my public service as a member of the GIAA Board of Directors. Dankulu na si Zeus Masi ni todo I atención mizo zan I supportin mizo sinceramente, Rosie Tainatongo.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tainatongo. I'll now open it. Any questions of my colleagues they have? Senator Taitagui?
Sijus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to say thank you to the nominee. Rosie, I've known you for many years too as well. I've seen you in action, and you're definitely one person who will not stop until the job is done. And I greatly appreciate that. Your wealth of knowledge and experience will be a great asset to the board. So good luck to you. You have my support, and I appreciate you coming out of, I know you can retire, and Mariso is a beautiful place to hang out with, but I really appreciate you stepping up to the plate and coming out of retirement, per se. You never stopped working as long as I've known you. You'll continue till you're 100 years old, but I greatly appreciate you taking on this role. Okay. Thank you, Sijus Masi, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitagui.
Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Tainatongo, thank you for accepting the nomination and continuing on with another of the several boards that you have experience on. I'm looking forward to what you can bring to the airport, and I think if you ran it like a school, that place is going to be really nice. I'm glad you're there, and I'm looking forward to the knowledge and experience that you'll be sharing with the Airport Authority. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Moylan.
Senator Marsh.
Hafaday, good to see everybody here, and Sijus Masi for all the testimony and the support that people provided. So, as you've mentioned and highlighted in your testimony, you have quite a bit of experience in management, in administration, and other experiences. And with that, you've already been dealing with a large number of employees, a large number of clients, understanding how to balance and consider the issues for thousands and tens of thousands of them. You've had to work with large budgets. You know how to deal with facility issues. So I think that each of those are strengths that you bring. The broad range of civic involvement. So again, that speaks to the broad range of issues. And I think that they can come up in various ways in a position like this, where you've worked with healthcare systems, our senior citizens, Federal Credit Union, and even Civic Improvement Club. So each of those, I think, speak to issues that can come up for the airport as we're dealing with some of those in how the facilities run, how we're trying to accommodate passengers and visitors that are traveling through our area or to our island as a destination. I think that you can bring some of those experiences that can help them tackle certain issues or see certain things that maybe others would not because they didn't have that experience. So with that, I guess maybe just the question, you mentioned your qualities of being compassionate and patient. Patience is always a good virtue. Being a good listener, and being interested in us providing the best service. So of the experience that you bring or of the issues that you know that are ongoing with the airport, is there a priority for you, an area that you're hoping to really help tackle? If you could share that with us.
Well, Senator Marsh, I went up to the airport, and of course, during my tenure at Department of Education, I have dealt with so many capital improvement projects, building new schools, renovating schools, even earthquake damaged schools. So I've worked with CM, the contract management, and also I work very well with Department of DPW in doing all of this work. So I work well with people, and whatever we need to do, I went to the airport and I really praised the employees at the airport, because the construction that's going on right now, they were able to manage to make sure that nothing prevents the passengers from moving forward, getting out from the airport, and it's still safe. I mean, they were putting up these big beams to secure the airport because of the earthquake. So I really thank them for that, and what I do want to support the mission of what we want to make sure that our airport is the first entrance to our island for new visitors, and we want to make sure we welcome them well and make sure that their experience at the airport will be very improved, will be hospitable, and that they will feel good about coming back to our island again.
Those are very good points, Sujus Maasi, and it's very good to see you accepting the nomination.
Thank you, Senator Marsh.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I just want to say thank you, Mrs. Tainatongo, for the willingness to serve once again, and your continued desire to give yourself for the community and the people of Guam. I do have several questions for you. Right now, the airport is facing some challenges in regards to the third floor corridor and also the litigation between DFS and Lotte. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I was talking to Tom about the Lotte, and I was asking because they were supposed to go to court April the 19th, and I guess they moved that further. So he was saying that, the airport has been coming in, justifying all the action that they have done, but they continue to go, continue to proceed with the suit between DFS and Lotte. So I know that it's in the hands of the court, but when I was at the Department of Education, I tried to resolve things at the lowest level where we do not escalate to really this high. But now, since it's in the hands of the court, we would appreciate the court making a decision soon, so then we can settle this problem.
And also just to caution, or to perhaps to be mindful of, we did have an informational hearing very early on in the term in regards to the litigation and to the third floor corridor. to please keep an eye on the contracts and the development that is going on with the third floor corridor, because they are continually moving over budget to complete this third floor corridor, not just by the several hundreds of thousands, just by the millions of dollars. And of course, that money also comes from the peoples and the taxes that they pay. In regards to Lotte, there was a commitment by one of the members in the informational hearing. A concern that I shared was, what if Lotte lost the litigation? Would the airport have to reimburse Lotte for the attorney fees? And there was a commitment by one of the members saying that no, that is not the intent of Lotte, to have the airport reimburse the attorney fees. So please be mindful of that as well.
I did ask the question about that, and Tom did say that Lotte is paying for the legal fees.
That's right.
Yes.
So, but it's not direct. I believe that the process in which it is done is it's reimbursed through the airport. And so I believe the airport pays it up front, and then Lotte reimburses the airport for paying the fees. So I just want to make sure that Lotte doesn't bring our airport to suit if anything should go unaccording to plan, right? So thank you very much for your service, and I look forward to your meticulous review on a lot of the things that the airport is doing with their contracts and so forth.
Okay.
Right, thank you very much, Ms. Tainatongo, and thank you also everyone for coming to testify on our appointees and for taking the time out to show your support. Thank you.
Senator, can I just also thank Vic for being here, and Sudan and John Kenata. They're from the airport, and I thank them for being here.
There's JQ. Yes, I saw Vic earlier. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too, and you have a good day. Thank you very much.
Your water hose.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we have exhausted our appointees, we will move on to Bill 57-35, and I will ask Senator Moylan to go ahead and speak on the merits of his bill. Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 5735 Core is an act to amend subsection 12106G of Chapter 12, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the process of approving or denying charter school petitions. This legislation finds that the Guam Academy Charter School Act of 2009 created a challenging mandate when it came to requiring a certain number of converted public schools. The same charter that established charter schools also crafted relatively unachievable requirements for any licensee seeking to initiate an academy charter school on Guam. Charter schools provide alternative options for families seeking certain curriculum for their children or desire a smaller student-to-educator ratio while retaining a public school education. The intent of this legislation is not to create an infinite number of charter schools. Rather, it is to create an equal approach for all applicants when it comes to starting such a school, without increasing the mandate number of charter schools on island. Charter schools do not cost the taxpayers any additional dollars, as the cost per student is moved from a traditional Guam Department of Education school to a charter school of choice. These schools also have the potential of providing public school educators the opportunity of a smaller class sizes, thus improving the student or educator ratio. We are also seeing entities seeking more vocational trades to be added to their charter school curriculum, hence providing students alternative options for career choices. This legislation would remove any requirements on the number of new and converted academy charter schools on island by merely allowing the applicant to apply for whichever option represents the school of choice they desire to open. If the entity is able to accomplish the requirements outlined by a converted school, then they will be able to apply under that license if they so desire. Otherwise, the entity can apply as a new school and invest in its infrastructure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Just give me a sec here. I will now invite those that would like to give oral testimony. I believe Mr. Stephen McManus. We also have listed here Leah Duenas, Feo Valles, Juan Flores. If anyone else would like to give oral testimony, please come forward and state your name for the record. And Dr. Juan Pat. How about we just start from my left, your right, and we'll just go down that way. And go ahead and state your name.
Madam Vice Speaker, Senator Marsh, Senator Moylan, Senator Taitigui, my name is Joseph Lea Siolangi. I'm Safety Director for Black Construction, and I'm here on a request by Pastor Steve McManus in support of charter school.
Thank you, sir.
Day and thank you so much, Vice Speaker Nelson, Senator Marsh, and Senator Moylan, and Senator Taitigui. Thank you so much for providing this time for us. On behalf of Career Tech High School, we thank you for introducing this bill to allow us the opportunity to start our school, a journey that we began more than 2 years ago. We organized and incorporated the school for the purpose of providing what would be Guam's only standalone career tech school. In my experience of working with Guam Community College and as an educator for 30 years, and as a product of Guam's former standalone career tech school, which was GCC's high school back in the 80s, I experienced directly the advantage of having a school that is solely focused on technical education, not as an option, not as an alternative, not as an alternate education path in a typical public high school. And I think that's why we're not seeing the kind of success rate that we should be seeing in a career tech school. So we established the school for the purpose of providing an opportunity for our students, for the youth of Guam, for 100% success rate of everyone who goes to Career Tech High, to not only graduate, but to have credits that articulate to Guam's local college and universities, but also that they would be certified. They will be certified with nationally recognized certification in the trade of their choice. We also are going to provide trades that are not being provided in any of the current CTE programs offered in any of our high schools. One of which is a maritime academy, maritime science, and controlled environment, agriculture, as well as renewable energy. We will offer courses that are offered in other CTE programs, especially in IT, information technology, and health services. We especially wanted to have the school open down south because of the lack of charter schools. There are no charter schools in South, and the accessibility for our families in the South, we feel is they need a school. They should have access to an option. One of the charter school distinctives is that it is not limited to districting. School choice on Guam is very problematic in that if a parent and or child is struggling in their district school, their only option is private schools, many of which is unaffordable to most families. Charter schools provide the once exclusive luxury of choice to families who cannot afford expensive private education. And the specialized technical education pathways that CTEX or Career Tech High seeks to provide are in areas that are high in value, high paying, and in high demand. Career Tech seeks to be the premier technical high school of the Pacific that will equip the next generation of skilled professionals. And we encourage this, we are asking that this legislature would approve this bill so that we could move on with our goal of opening this school. We want to remind you that in spite of the opposition from, or the opposition, as Mr. Fernandez stated, to the proposed bill, that we're not asking the legislature to expand the current number of charter schools that's allowed in the 2009 Act. It would still be within the 7 charter schools that it was, the spirit of the law was originally intended. I just want to say that the argument that he brought up that there are the 3 non-converted schools has already been maxed out is because nobody wants to do a conversion. There's just, as he even stated, it's too difficult. There's a lot of problems, and I know Juan could expound on that more. But we will be keeping within the existing number of charter schools that's allowed. And so thank you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. McManus.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Juan Flores, and I'm a member of the Career Tech High Academy Charter School Board. And there are 3 things that I wanted to focus on that have to do with the goals of the Charter School Act. Some of it we've expressed before, but I think they're worth repeating because they're still at the heart of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish by trying to open the Career Tech High School. One has to do with making sure that we improve student learning. We're trying to design a school for 400 students, which means that every adult in the school is going to be responsible for the success of those students. We're committed to high standards, but we're also committed to a high level of support. So we don't just fail students and then maybe hope they find some other way to earn credits to go to high school. We'll find the method to get them to make up credits if they have to, or we'll make sure the instructional process actually leads them to succeeding in their classes. And one of the areas in which that's going to be relevant is that as a fully integrated career tech academic school, all of the academic courses will incorporate career tech principles, and all the career tech courses will incorporate the skills from academic subjects, so that there's never a separation between the two. The students will find relevance in their academic courses, and they'll find intellectual support in their career tech classes. That's a very critical part of a fully integrated career tech school that we've never had on Guam. The second is to increase learning opportunities for all students with emphasis on expanded learning experiences. And the idea behind a student being able to focus on a career tech area means that that student is looking beyond high school. That the student doesn't just wake up the morning of high school graduation and say, now what? that from day one that student is always thinking that he or she is going to have to graduate from high school, and unless he's independently wealthy or his family's independently wealthy, is going to have to find a way not just to get the first job, but to develop a career. And all of those experiences in the school were going to lead to that. Not just in the classroom, but more importantly, outside the classroom. The flexibility that a charter school has can allow for that. We can set up a schedule that we think is best for the students. We can work with the members of the industry or government agencies or nonprofit organizations to provide our students with opportunities that are not now held in the classroom. And we can make sure that all of their learning somehow is documented, so when those students walk out of the high school, they're going to come out with some kind of certification, some kind of validation that their learning meant something. And not by somebody else, not because they pass a test someplace else, but they pass a test or they earn a certification that we've incorporated. The third is to encourage the use of different and innovative teaching methods. We haven't hired any teachers, obviously, but if we were to hire teachers, we want teachers who want to buy the idea that the norm in teaching that they may have been used to may not apply at Career Tech High. That getting to serving the students and getting to meet the needs of the students is so critical that if we have to implement new methods, we will. And that means even with a very lean budget, we're going to set aside money for professional development. That we're going to make sure that we send teachers off island to visit other schools, to attend conferences, maybe to increase their education so that they continue to be the best teachers that we can have at those schools. Those three seem like the platitudes that we hear for any educational system. We've started from ground zero at thinking about these things and making sure that these are the commitments we'll make. Before we worry about anything else, we want to worry about what impact this school is going to have on each and every student in the school. Suzus Masi.
Thank you. Governor Camacho.
Hi, good morning, and thank you. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues and former colleague also in the legislature. I'm here in support, of course, of Bill 57, and I know that the main intent really is to amend the number of converted schools and allow for an expansion of the number of other schools that can be chartered independent of the current facilities within DOE. The Career Tech had previously received a conditional approval with the previous administration and the board, the charter school board. And again, it was based on the fact that the number of allowed schools have already, the quota had been met. And so the intent is to amend the number of schools that are allowed under converted DOE facilities and expand those that would be allowed to be developed independently. When you think of the Career Tech High, I think that we have to consider the time and the need of our society and our community right now. The fact that we have H-2 worker issues and the inability to import workers from the Philippines has been cause of great economic impact. Talking to individuals that want to even build a house or a duplex or commercial developers, the costs have increased by perhaps up to 40%. The ability for this economy to expand is hampered by the lack of workers. And there's no reason why our community should not be able to produce skilled workers that can be educated within our own school system and move on in their career. When I think of the past and the federal government with the Guam, with the shipyard, the U.S. Naval shipyard, and its closure back then, the number of families that had to leave island because the jobs were no longer here, but they were skilled workers that had gone through apprenticeship programs, that were journeymen, that had careers. The entire industry was affected, and we lost a great pool of workers. Now with the imposition and the prohibitions of workers coming from the Philippines, again, it has had a tremendous impact, almost reminiscent of what happened then. And so I think the opportunity to allow for a charter school that would provide for career technical training and education is timely and absolutely necessary. And when you think about it, I know there are many arguments. In the U.S. alone, there are 43 states, I believe, or more that have charter schools. There are in excess of 7,000 charter schools, in excess of 3 million students within that program. And the United States itself is beginning to suffer, many industries, in not having skilled workers with this next generation. So we must do everything we can to ensure that we provide opportunities for those that have an interest in pursuing this career. It would enhance, it would complement, it would promote even the programs within DOE and the education for trades that are provided by GCC at the moment. But I think entrepreneurship, I think that innovation, I think that creativity, fiscal discipline, there are many pros that would lead to this. And when you think of in a large scale of many government initiatives that have taken what are typically or historically government functions and have gone with public-private partnerships, that have gone with outright outsourcing, both local and federal government services to private sector. In many ways, this is something like that. You have publicly funded independent schools that can provide an education. And I think this is very complementary. It's certainly the trend, and I would ask for your support for this bill. I think it's timely, and I think it's right, and I think it's just. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wonpat.
Hafaday, tatlo. Guahu si Judy Wampat. Okay, I'm here to testify in favor of the bill number 57, right? Okay. I think it's important that I share the genesis of the charter school law because everybody's making all kinds of opinions on it. It actually started when I was a school principal at FB Young Girl Middle School. And the director there, former Gloria Nelson, and the deputy, former Dr. Ione Wolf, called the principals in because the test results were really low, and she wanted to know what we can do. So she challenged us. No one stepped up to the plate, but I did, because I read all of the documents about the true middle school concept, and I decided to take on the challenge, knowing, of course, that it could fail, and then I would definitely have ruined my career. What is in the bill was basically what Mrs. Nelson and Dr. Ione Wolf told me that I needed to do. Is one, to be able to pilot a program, and that I'll be able to operate independently of all the other schools in the Department of Education. She required that I do the following. I improve student learning. I increase learning opportunities for all students with special emphasis on expanded learning experiences. That I encourage the youth, that we are to encourage the use of different and innovative teaching methods. That I will create new professional opportunities for teachers, including the opportunity to be responsible for the learning program at the school, to provide parents, guardians, students, teachers with expanded choices in the types of educational opportunities that are available within the public school system, and to hold the schools established under, of course, this whole charter law accountable for meeting measurable student educational standards. And after 5 years of this pilot program, a new administration came in, was doubting what we were doing, and had challenged our school on the results and meeting exactly what was stated by the previous Director of Education. And so the Department of Education did then a formal evaluation of all the programs, test scores, teacher attendance, teacher morale, student self-esteem. And the results are, and there's a document, unfortunately, not everybody has that document. It got lost somehow, but I decided to keep one just in case. But the results then were that We had the highest student attendance compared to all the other middle schools. We had the lowest discipline problem throughout all middle schools. We had high teacher self-esteem in spite of the fact that our per pupil cost at our school was low. And we had the highest student self-esteem. And the one subject area that we were working on was reading scores. We had the highest reading scores. So it was a success. Unfortunately, because it was a pilot program, there wasn't anything that the department could do by then, because we could not then, because we were not a charter school. We weren't authorized by law. The director wasn't authorized by law to have charter schools. But in essence, that's what it was. Then I was in the legislature, and the decision was then, what do I do? Primarily because many schools were asking to be able to do something similar to this. And I'll name some of those schools. But this, you have to remember, we're back in the day, in the, I would say in the 80s, so it may not be relevant today. There was talk about wanting an immersion school, so that became part, a Chamorro immersion school. And the schools that were being considered at the time, and had actually discussed this at one time, was FQ Sanchez to do a full immersion school because they felt that that's where the language and the culture was the strongest. In addition, Inarajan Middle School teachers were asking for the same thing because their children were going down to Gef Pago, and their children were from the village of Inarajan. So there was a strong emphasis also of the Chamorro language and culture being practiced there. Simon Sanchez, Southern High School, has this beautiful theater that has been down more than it has been up and operating. And there was talk about making it a school of arts. But they wanted to do a hybrid, meaning that a charter school will run the arts part of the high school, but the children would take all of their academics at the high school. Agana Heights Elementary School was very successful with a program called Success for All. But when they decided to do Common Core, they no longer do that program, Success for All. Do you know that there was a long list of parents wanting to enroll their children there? FB Leon Guerrero, also middle school, who piloted the true middle school concept, is the interdisciplinary concept. And what it was is that they also had a long list of parents begging, crying, asking that their child be accepted into the school. Carbolito Elementary School had the highest test scores of a DI school, but they couldn't continue because then it was changed to Common Core. Then the former superintendent of education, and at the time there was this whole push for science, technology, engineering, and math programs, STEM. The director herself, the superintendent herself, decided then that they were going to be feeder schools that would fit right into the engineering program at the University of Guam. So GW was selected, the feeder school was Antlan Middle School, and then the elementary school was PC Lujan. So those schools are all, the plan was to feed right into the University of Guam. Where are they today? I'm not in the system, so I can't answer the question, but it's a question that I think needs to be answered, needs to be addressed. Now, Senator, I really appreciate the fact that, you are looking then at lifting the cap, but I think it really needs to go further. And the reason why I say that, and this is my comments, is that although you have, I provided, of course, at the time, long time ago when I did this, 7, it says 7 shall not exceed 7. But what you're noticing now, really, what you're seeing is that there is a need, not just for our children of being able to go into an alternative program. We have a different society and community in the business sector wanting more from our schools. And I know that primarily when you think of the Department of Education, is they provide traditional education, and now they're trying to respond to the needs of the community. So they're adding all these little programs in their schools, when those programs technically could be done successfully by charter schools, by nonprofit charter schools serving public school children. So my suggestion would be is, yes, just remove the cap. Or you might want to set a higher level. At the time I said 7 because I didn't realize that there were really a greater interest. But when I was thinking about all the schools that I have just listed, we're talking about 6 schools already. 6 different schools. Now, the superintendent just announced the other day that there's going to be this Chamorro Immersion School. And at the time when we were talking about this, when the bill was written, which was in Arahan Middle School, we were talking about F.Q. Sanchez, nobody wanted to touch it. Now, we're talking about it, and now there will be an immersion school, which is great. I applaud that. Finally, it's being done. But there are other programs, such as the new school, the new technical school here, that honestly, yes, the Department of Education cannot provide. The Guam Community College has been a long-time partner, yes, of our public schools, providing traditional, again, trades, vocations. But what this other charter school is planning is something totally different. And that's because the needs are changing, times are changing, and we need to change along with it. And that I would think that then to allow schools, allow parents, teachers, students, community members to actually consider the use of DOE facilities. And I say this with 100% certainty. All of our public schools are underutilized. Underutilized. We have high schools that were designed to take 3,000 students up to. They're all about 1,500, 1,700. Right there, you can see that then they are being underutilized. You look at other elementary schools, you take Brody, has a capacity of 750 students, and they have slightly below 300 students. And that's just a few. So I suggest that, yes, we really remove the cap. It doesn't really answer it as much if you're looking at saying to remove then the cap for the converted schools. Yes, remove the 3, but allow greater opportunities for parents, teachers, and community members then to really convert those schools. So I like that idea that you're doing. So, but then as well, put another section to actually take care of what it is that the superintendent did the other day. Allow him then is to do that conversion of a total immersion school, Chamorro immersion school, from a traditional school. So allow charter schools to meet the needs of our children, our community, and our business sector, because they basically are, so to speak, the experts of specific programs, specific curriculum areas that they want to be able to provide. And yes, you want to make sure that there are measurable educational standards. And it's not one of those where traditionally this is how it's been done. You have low test scores. That's okay. We just say, all right, so let's work on it. And it's been that way for many years. The charter schools are the only ones that are asked and held accountable to higher standards of making sure that we improve student learning, that we provide learning opportunities for them, and that the educational results are measurable. Because if we don't, I know there's that option, is put us on probation, close us up, whatever, but you will never see that happen with GDOE. Never. Because by law, yes, they're supposed to then educate all children. But every one of the charter schools are having students from the public school, so therefore they are public school children meeting the needs of our children and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Juan Pat. Ms. Olivares? Ovales, Ms. Ovales.
Good morning again, Madam Chairwoman and Vice Speaker Telena Cruz, member of the 35th Guam Legislature. Good morning again, Senator Taitagui, Senator Moylan, and Senator Kelly Marsh. I'm back here again to testify in behalf of Bill 5735. Again, my name is Faye Valencia Ovales, currently the board chair for the Guam Academy Charter School. Listening to everybody's testimony really give now a better sense of what our charter schools should be, and how it should be run, and how it should be looked into, and how it will be developed to be in sync with what the global demand is right now as far as the quality of workforce that has to be trained, whether it's on CTE, whether it's on other programs. But we do, as charter schools, are able to make all of these choices within our school, and all of this curriculum as simply defines exactly what's the expertise of all the charter schools that's going to be coming in from here on, which is not quite the same as the regular traditional public school. Not only about the fact that we are only running on a 6,500 per pupil, well, 6,040, right, Pago? We're pushing for it to go back to 6,500 per pupil. But the cost versus the traditional school is a lot more. I think that has to be looked into again one more time, and look at whether this funding is really equitable. The language of Bill 5735 is now clearly defines the number of authorized charter schools here on Guam. As Senator Moylan, the author, said, Senator Moylan expressed his finding that the bill removes the requirement on all the number of new and converted charter schools. This amendment really reflects the principle of charter school to be choice, to be a school of choice. The petitioner can freely apply for a charter either as a converted school or as a new school. We acknowledge and subscribe to the statement by the legislative findings and the intent in Section 1 of this bill that states charter schools provide alternative options for families seeking certain curriculum for their children or desire a smaller student-to-educator ratio while retaining a public school education. As we move on to the passage of the bill, I would be remiss if I did not, again, I mentioned that earlier, to appeal in the Guam legislature to address the funding of all charter schools. Sijus Masi, on behalf of the Guam Academy Charter School family, and we wish everyone happy Mother's Day. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Juan Pat?
Thank you very much. I didn't flip my page over, but there is one other amendment that I'd like to ask if you would consider is Section 12104, subsection 3A, which basically has a requirement of 60%. When I put the 60%, it was because when I did it with my school, I had 90% of teachers, parents, students all, wanting to pilot this program. And so I brought it down to 60, but it really is an unreasonable number. And I'd just like for you to consider then either removing that number or coming up with something a little bit more achievable and reasonable, which is Section 12104 of the Public Law, Section 3A, to assign where you're going to file a petition that is signed by not less than 60%. That was a very high number, and I based it basically, like I said, on my previous experience when I was able to get 90% of my teachers, parents, students, and staff involved in and designing that pilot program.
So the request for the recommended amendment is in subsection 12104.
Yes.
In 17 GCA, Chapter 12, which is the process for filing charter petitions.
And it's 3A.
And it reads in subsection 3A, shall file the petition with the council for approval after the petition, and A, is signed by not less than 60% of the sum of. So you're recommending or you're requesting to increase it to 90%?
No, I said I did it at 90%.
You did it at 90%.
I thought 60 would have worked, but then I've been hearing from individuals, like I said, some of the schools that I've mentioned, that that's just too high a number. And I don't know what, I mean, I don't want to guess again, you know, in terms of what that would be, and maybe you can come up with language to ensure then that there will be this opportunity for nonprofit organizations, such as whether parents or community members who want to come together to then petition to have, you know, a school, you know, a converted school.
So what would...
Okay, maybe a yeah.
What are some of the challenges?
Former
then?
governor said it's simple majority.
Simple majority.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much, Governor.
No, right now it's at 60%. So they're asking to remove the language, the number of 60%, and use simple majority in place. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Do my colleagues have any questions? Senator Marsh, do you have a question?
Hafide, Sujus Masi for being here today and for providing the testimony. I think it would be useful, there's been a lot of discussion about the converted school process or this hinging upon converting a school or not converting a school. Could somebody, perhaps Dr. Wampad or someone else, just explain what the converted school process is and how this is a hindrance so that we can all make sure that we're understanding it properly?
Of course, and thank you very much for that question. What it basically means is that, first of all, there may be a group of individuals or teachers or parents who would want to come together and organize themselves as a nonprofit organization to be authorized then to, one is, well, first of all, do a business in the government of Guam. And when this idea came forward, it was because it was the teachers at my school who've been really talking about how successful their school was, and were thinking that when, upon retirement, they would like to come together and then organize themselves and go into either the Board of Education or the council then to charter a school by converting an existing school. And the reason for that is because, as you know, the startup cost is difficult for any nonprofit organization unless you have some financial backing to be able to build a school. And usually in the first year, even the first year, is just infrastructure issues that needs to be addressed, the physical infrastructure and the educational infrastructure. So what they would do then is that once they get the petition then signed by, you know, the teachers for converted school and parents of that particular school, is that they would then submit that petition to the council, the Academy Charter Council, basically showing that they have provided the individuals that they've done this educational outreach to get others involved in the schools. And then when they submit that, then the eligible school then would provide all of the information about how they're going to be set up, all the requirements of basically when you think of a school, everything, but without, of course, hiring anyone, similar to what the vocational school has done here. And so they would state their mission and their goals. They would submit a statement for a need as to why they want to propose this. They would then do a description of exactly what their curriculum is going to look like, what is it that they're going to focus in, but it has to be then something that's not currently being offered by the Department of Education. You know, they must also show something slightly different. I mean, not different in terms of curriculum, but they definitely show that the classrooms, will be using technology, and that they would be able to apply the 21st century technology so that our students can compete, that they can also then be participants of any type of district-wide assessments, or even assessments based on their curriculum. There's a whole description in the charter law that basically will require them to put a budget, together. It's just like setting up a whole new school. And the reason why in the conversion, like I said, was because at the school that I was in, F. Billion Middle School, it was an existing school. We wanted to convert, but we couldn't because we didn't have the mechanism, we didn't have the law on our side to be able to do that. And however, apparently now it can be done because it was done yesterday. They announced that they're going to make one elementary school a Chamorro immersion school. But I think that should be followed with legislation by amending to allow for that then, so that there won't be that, question later on.
Senator, I just wanted to comment on the conversions. I think that Dr. Wampat is being modest about what led FB Leongreo to be in the position that it was, and that was there was already a school community that she led that was in the position to make that conversion if it were allowed. That the 90% was easy because there were teachers and there were parents and there were staff members who already bought into the concept that she had presented, she had developed with the school. And I think that's a great thing that could occur. A couple of years ago, a couple of senators tried to introduce legislation to change Simon Sanchez into a charter school so that somehow that mechanism could lead to the funding of a new facility. The problem with that was it was not an internal decision-making process. It came from an outside force suggesting that be a charter school. I want to point out, though, that while a conversion is a great idea, there are some challenges. The first challenge, I think, removes choice on the part of the parents. Because if you lived in Barragata and their children were going to go to BP Carbolito, that if in fact it became a charter school that was different from a comprehensive elementary school that it is now, you'd have no choice but either to have your child attend that school or you'd have to send your kids somewhere else, outside of your village, outside of your neighborhood. And for some parents, that's a problem, that they don't want that. The second is that charter schools are not required to have union membership for the teachers and the staff members. And if the charter school decided it did not want to have union membership, those teachers who want to remain in a union might choose not to become a part of the school, or it might be an impediment to those teachers advancing at that school if there was no union membership. The third, which is, I hope at some point in the near future, the government can address the idea of retirement. Because right now, unless I'm mistaken, the charter school teachers can't participate in the government Guam Retirement Fund. And that's unique to Guam because other charter school laws that I've read require states to include charter school teachers in the local retirement fund so that those teachers don't have to break their retirement service and can continue to contribute. Now, we've had examples of government employees moving to autonomous or semi-autonomous agencies and continuing with their retirement. So maybe there's a fix there that can be addressed. But that's one impediment. I talked to a teacher who was at Guahan Academy, an unbelievably great teacher, and left the school, not because she didn't think it was a good school, but because her family felt she was ruining her investment in the retirement system. And she was bothered by that. The last thing is that there is a challenge in a converted charter school that while the current parents are the ones making decisions about converting that school, you're going to have to consistently and continuously build on the commitment of all the families to the concept of the school, because the subsequent families may not actually buy the idea of the school, but you need a school to last for a few years before you really see the growth and the true potential of the school. And that might be a challenge, especially in families who are entrenched in their villages, or families that are entrenched in the particular leadership of the school or the teachers of the school. There's no doubt in my mind that families choose schools, if they can right now, like if they apply for out-of-district assignment in a school, they do so either because of the administration, because of the teachers in the school, because of the philosophy of the school in terms of how the kids are taken care of. They're all focused on what's the best thing for the student. So conversions are a great concept. It's a challenge because we're not in the position of allowing students to move from one school to another easily. One of the dreams that I had when I used to be at the Department of Education was that every one of our high schools would become a specialized high school or have specialized programs. The problem is we couldn't get the bus system to address a very, very rigid system. If we had a great mass transit system, we could allow that. We could have kids from Melesu go all the way up to Simon Sanchez because there's something that school offers. We have kids from Jigu going all the way down to Southern High School because they have a program that they want. We can't do that now. And so if you get one of those schools and specialize them as a charter school, the kids in that district, the kids in that neighborhood or in that village now are forced to either stay in the school, a school they may not want, or have to find a way to transport themselves to another school.
So Jus Masi for providing some of that information.
There's actually more to this, and I'll add on to this, is that, because that was a question that was brought up in the entire discussion on the floor, is that what if a teacher from the Department of Education decides to go to the charter school? They would basically be on leave without pay. They would not lose their status. They would not lose their pay grade when they return. And they must be given, they must be picked up immediately if they return to that back to DOE within a 5-year period. If they come into a charter school, the charter school will continue or should continue with their retirement plan towards the retirement, their current program, or they can choose to go with the retirement plan provided by the charter school. But that's only up to a certain period where they're protected by law, up to, I think, 5 years, which means then they can either choose to go back again to DOE. If they decide to stay after that, then they would go now with the new plan by the charter school.
So the information is useful, and then you had taken care of my second question about what the downfalls were in dealing with converted schools. So I would ask, are there any partial conversions? It seems to me, especially if some of the facilities, the educational facilities, are being underutilized, if there are, or you see potential in partial conversions, I think that would address many of the issues that you brought up, those geographical restrictions and so forth.
The concept of schools within schools has been around for 25 years, 30 years maybe, or magnet schools within existing schools. I would say that we're pretty far away from Washington, D.C., that if we came up with some of those possibilities, I think we should be able to do it. And it may be that a partial conversion would just mean you take one part of a building and that becomes a charter school, whereas the rest of the building could be a regular school serving the district kids who just chose to be there because that's their assigned school. There's nothing, I think, to stop that. I mean, one of the great thoughts is that one of the schools that, this is not an exaggeration, grossly underutilized right now is Southern High School. And it's a beautiful campus with great possibilities, and it's possible that a section of that school could be allocated to a charter school. And the charter school could be responsible for refurbishing the section or taking care of the maintenance or ensuring the safety and security of the building, but it could run as a charter school, which would be separate from a regular DOE school.
May I respond as well? And he's totally correct. When we talk about schools within a school, that's exactly the program that I had at FB Leonguerra Middle School and Beneventi Middle School, that I've divided my school up and had 3 separate campuses.
We are back online now,
So can I
so
finish?
yes, please, Mr. Flores, go ahead. Continue what you were saying.
The only other thing that I would like the senators to consider right now is the timeliness of this bill. I've never been married, but I wonder if this is like if this is like what happens when you're about to get married, that you keep thinking it's going to happen, but then somebody tells you, no, the church is not available, or my mother doesn't want you to do it, or because we've been at this, as Steve mentioned, for a couple of years with great hopes, but mostly with great dreams. And so the reason for the timeliness is we're ready to roll up our sleeves and go after some grants. And there is one coming up. The U.S. Department of Education has a grant. We haven't seen the number in terms of the amount. In the past, it's been upwards of $450,000 that is awarded to any charter schools that are starting up. And that could greatly help the school, especially one like ours, that could pay for equipment for the technical education courses, the labs and the equipment that we need for those courses. Or when it's up for applying for, again, is a Carl Perkins grant through GCC. And we've done it before, but the last time we applied for that grant, we were not considered because although we anticipated getting approved, we never got approved, and so we couldn't qualify for that grant. So we are trying to kind of work at not just expecting the burden of running the school coming from the governor of Guam, although I firmly believe, as Dr. Wampat and the other charter schools believe, in the equity of the assignment of funds to each school, each student rather, but we're also very eager to take advantage of any outside funding that helps supplement the running of the school.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Flores. Dr. Wampat?
Can I just finish what we started before
Yes,
the power outage?
Yes.
What I wanted to say is that this whole idea of a school within a school concept was actually practiced in 2 schools that I was in. And it's a great thing to do that because you'll be able to reduce any problems out in the hallways. You can assign specific individuals, custodians, counselors, school aides to be able to work with specific campuses or a specific grade. And that's the reason why, like I said earlier in the results, was that our discipline problem was the lowest of all the schools, because then now we were keeping them at a specific campus, a specific wing, where everybody knows the kids and who are skipping, because if it was lunchtime for one particular grade, then the aides and everyone assigned to that particular grade will be out. so they'll know that who's not supposed to be there. So that concept, yes, is very old, but we've never really taken advantage of that concept here, and I really wish we would, because that will definitely help in a lot of the discipline problems, the skipping that you'll be seeing, and then you're going to have individuals who know everyone in that specific campus. The other thing I wanted to also add on the conversion, the way it's designed, is that then the nonprofit organization of teachers, like I said, parents and community members, will not only then get the school facility, they would also get to keep the budget of that school, whatever it is at the time. Teachers are given first rights of refusal, whether to stay or to transfer, and that the department will do everything to get them then to the school of their choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wampat. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Do you have any more questions? Do you have any more questions, Senator Marsh? Or any? Well,
I just wanted to clarify. You said yesterday with the announcement of the language immersion school that it sounded like, was that the first school that was converted then?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there have not been any other conversions. Now, I'm aware of, in Humatic, there's a school, I believe, that was closed down.
FQ Sanchez Elementary
yes,
School.
Yes, FQ Sanchez, there we go. And I think it was redesignated, but that's the one school that I'm aware of that has closed down, Adelup, of course. But is there any school at this time that is closed down?
No.
Other than those?
That's the only school.
Okay. So just Masi for that background. And right, in looking at this, I'm supportive of the idea of creative solutions. I'm hoping that there are ways that they are going to helping out some of the ones that are most in need of alternative solutions or approaches, and the importance of helping them meet our workforce needs and realities that are with us. I think important to consider in this is to see if we can work towards something where there isn't a waste of facilities that we do have, and that there is perhaps this opportunity for cost sharing and the sharing of responsibilities. So I guess the one concern that I would have is that if facilities are being underutilized and we're completely removing the need to create some ability or some increased ability to share a campus for partial conversion or conversion, that there might be better ways to be using facilities or funding.
Absolutely, and I'd just like to say, and I thank you very much for your thought there as well, and is that when you maximize full utilization of your campus, you would find then that there will be a reduction in costs, whether it's personnel, whether it's utilities, whether it's maintenance. There's a total cost savings. When you allow for either a charter school to come in and partner with a traditional school, then what you're doing is you're maximizing then your schools. Because if you're operating at a real low number and you have two schools, this is what we call, when in master scheduling, is cross-leveling, is where you're going to save money. So when you have a class that's really low and another class again of the same subject area that's really low, you cross-level and you bring them in together, and guess what? You free up a classroom, you free up a teacher, everything, supplies and materials. And that's what, needs to happen. And I think it's the best thing for us because, and I remember the day when we had 36,000 students during my time, and we had 36 schools. Today, we have 29,000 students, and we have 41 schools. So, I mean, the dream and the idea, yes, of having more schools, modernized schools, were great, and community schools, but then now what we're finding, and just think about it, 36,000 to 29,000. Granted, the military didn't help us when they took some students out, but we're still nowhere where we were before, and yet we have more schools. So now we end up with having our schools underutilized. We're not maximizing our facilities.
All right. Thank you, Senator Marsh. Senator Titlery?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for sake of time, I just wanted, some of my questions were asked by Senator Taitano earlier. It says 7 here, 7 schools. You did make a comment, Speaker Wampat. I'm sorry, I have to stay with Speaker Wampat here because you've taught me well while I was in the legislature. Appreciate that. But you said to lift the cap from 7. That was one of your recommendations. Do you have a number to that, or it could be dangerous, just leaving it uncapped?
Oh, no, you're right, absolutely. Because at the time when we indicated 7, was based on the examples of schools that were having that conversation, that they would seriously want to consider this, parents and teachers at the time. And you're right, they were like 7. And there were elementary, middle, and high school. So, but I think now then that years ago that was the 7 could actually then now be increased to another number. And since, was stated earlier, is that this particular quota already has been met. So therefore, then there would be a need to increase it, because you're seeing that now, the request and the interest out in the community for more charter schools.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think the numbers reflect that in the test scores. And that's why this is something that I'm sure every parent wants to utilize, or have their children going to school where their test scores are higher than that of another. So yes. I agree with you on raising the cap a little bit from 7 to a higher number. Other questions, I will, hold off because of sake of time, and like to, I'm hoping the author of the bill too, if there's any markup meeting or something like that where we can have a longer conversation. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Titlery. Senator Moylan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate all the information. Well, the committee will be, I'm sure, looking at some amendments to this. It's very helpful that all the input that you provided, and we're working hard to get this transcript done so we can get the wedding going. Okay, thank you.
The wedding going.
We're ready to kill the pig.
Just one question. We introduced a bill because we know some of the challenges the charter schools having with accreditation. So we introduced a bill removing the council as the authority to renew the charter, and the bill is a requirement that upon enactment of the bill, the charter school has 6 years to gain candidacy. Is this a reasonable compromise?
You will be having a public hearing on that,
yes.
though? So I would like to reserve my comments until that day. Right. And I appreciate, of course, the introduction of that bill and a companion bill that you introduced as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wampat. Okay, thank you very much. This exhausts our agenda for today's hearing. It is now 12:13. I'd like to thank my colleagues and all of you that have come to give testimony. Thank you very much, and God bless.